So my name is Aaron Riley, aka Sonar Riley, on Twitter at Sonar Riley. I am a dad, a husband, friend, family member, etc. I was a diehard not as much a diehard, but I was a diehard Seahawk fan, and grew up in the NFL and college football. And during the time there, my wife is not an American football fan very much. So when I had my season tickets, at first it was my sister and I, and that was awesome because we shared a pair. And then she met somebody and went off and had their own pair. So then I took my daughter a couple times, etc. But you know, taking a 4-year-old, 3-year-old, 5-year-old to football, American football, isn't exactly always the best idea in the world. And my wife had no interest at all in going. So when I was there, Drew Carey raised the 12th man flag in 2007, I believe. And is that right, 2007? Yeah, because 2009 was the first season. So 2007. And I remember calling her from the stadium, which at that point, if you guys know the Hawks or the Sounders, it's ridiculous. You can't hear a thing when the game's going on. So I'm calling her as Drew Carey's finishing raising the 12th man flag, and I'm like, we're getting soccer in Seattle. And at that point, I had really, you know, if the World Cup was on or if it was on somewhere, I might watch it, but I wouldn't go out of my way to watch it. I was an American football fan. I followed the stories, found out when they released it. We got 4 season tickets right away, even though we only had my daughter at that point. But so what happened is in 2008, once they did all this, 2007, 2008, I, being the way I am, when I find something new and something I love, I went all in. And my wife to this day, actually I was telling her I was going to be doing the story, and she goes, are you going to tell him that I've rued the day every single since then? And I'm like, yep, absolutely. And so that first year, the 2008, quote, before the season really started in 2009, I watched everything and I learned the game. I basically learned the game. I knew the basics. I learned the game in 2008. For better or worse, I went all in. So there you go. There's my story about where my love of soccer came from. Well, a core group of us, what ended up being 4, because the 5th member sitting at this table couldn't go. He's kicked himself ever since then. We decided to travel to San Jose for an away match. It was the U.S. Open Cup versus San Jose down at Kezar Stadium down in San Francisco. It was just an event. It was an event for us. So we all, it was Brian, Adam, and Lee and I. But it was this great little event where when we met, actually Marcus, one of our good friends of the show and good friend of ours, we met him for the first time ever at the airport in security line. And we're like, oh, that's cool. Hey, you're going to the game, he's going to the game. And we split up. He flew one airline, we flew another airline. And we ended up out at the BART together again. And then we ended up at the Pre-Funk together again. And now we're friends and we see him all the time. So we get to the Pre-Funk, we're doing the Pre-Funk, we're having a great time. And we start the match. So we were all Ustream fans. So my phone's a little bigger now, but I had an old iPhone 4 and I held it up like this and just sang, and we did the march and I streamed the march just on Ustream. And it was super fun. I had a ton of viewers, which I was shocked at. And then we get to the stadium and it's an old school stadium. It is an old, was it high school and a college, I think, as well. The 49ers played there, I think, way back in the day in like the early 1900s or mid 1900s, whatever. There was a track, like a long jump, like right in front of us, the supporters were. And so when the AR was running back and forth, I kept worrying about her stepping back a foot. If she had stepped back 1 foot, she would have been in the long jump in the dirt, which was always like hilarious. San Jose, very technology-based area, right? I mean, the whole, Santa Clara, the whole, Silicon Valley. They couldn't figure out how to get their anthem singing. They couldn't figure out how to get their stream running. So ECS, we sang the anthem because they couldn't get it working, and it was beautiful. That's one of those moments that having ECS lead the entire stadium basically in the national anthem, and when we were only a couple hundred strong, was so powerful and so amazing and beautiful. Then we're watching the game, and we hear through Twitter that the game isn't on. There is a big red question mark. The big red X. big red question mark is a sign from Ustream that you have a problem, which we found out later because we ended up using Ustream for our show. They couldn't stream it, they were having problems. So I held up my phone and I started showing pictures of ECS, singing and cheering, chanting, and everyone's like, we don't care about that. We want to watch the game because there's no feed of the game. So for the next hour and a half, 2 hours, basically I just held my phone up And I had a spare battery, thank God. And then the folks behind us had a spare battery. So we did that, and we just basically held the phone up the entire game with our own commentary. And anyway, so we broadcast the game. And at one point, there was like 600 or 700 people on Ustream watching it. And of those 600, 700 people, there was like the AC, the George and the Dragon, and all these other places were up here were streaming the game from us. And we're like, I couldn't believe it. I mean, my phone was blowing up, but I'm like, I just gotta hold it up here. Then the game ended, and San Jose's fans are interesting sometimes. So we had to book it back to the supporter bar and then book it back to the hotel, which we ended up going to another bar. That's where we met Ross Fletcher for the first time in person. He came out and hang out with us. I streamed part of that as well. And then I put the phone away at that point, because then we were into late in the night. So we had a few drinks at this point, maybe. But that was kind of one of those moments that really took my love of friendship and family and really cemented beyond anything else we'd done. We'd had our little group here, we had done that kind of stuff, but that trip really took us to a different level, and for me, my love and my passion of it. And then we do our show, and people come down and watch us here at the Berliner Pub on Monday nights. And so 7:30 Monday night, Berliner Pub. But we come down here. You have to keep that in. You can't edit that.